I don't care about your beauty or your money. I only want you to have an. You may think you know what those unfinished words mean, but you don't. Not yet. Because there are some sentences that arrive in your life like ordinary words, only to become the doorway to something you were never prepared to discover, and this one is different because someone has been carrying it in their heart for much longer than you realize. You have spent so much time wondering whether you were beautiful enough, successful enough, wealthy enough, interesting enough, or worthy enough that you forgot something important about yourself. You forgot that the right person will not stare at your outside and calculate your value. The right person will notice the way your heart changes when someone is hurting, the silence behind your smile, the way you keep going when nobody knows how difficult it has become, and that is exactly where this story begins. There was a moment you never knew about. A quiet moment. No dramatic music. No warning. No sign in the sky. Just a conversation that happened somewhere you were not present, between people you never expected to be talking about you, and one sentence suddenly changed the entire meaning of everything you thought you knew. Someone asked, "What do you see in them?" And there was a pause, not the kind of pause that means someone has forgotten the answer. It was the kind of pause that happens when the truth is too deep to explain quickly. Because sometimes a person can spend years searching for the right words and still find that the simplest answer is the one that hurts the most. I don't care about their beauty. I don't care about their money. I only want them to have a nice heart. You were not there to hear it. You did not see the expression on the face of the person who said it. You did not know that someone had been watching you from a distance, not because they were interested in what you owned, but because they were trying to understand why your presence stayed in their mind long after you had left. And that is where the story becomes much more complicated than you think. Because you have been looking for love in the wrong places. You have been measuring love through attention, messages, compliments, gifts, reactions, promises, and visible signs. You have wondered why someone did not say enough, why someone suddenly became distant, why someone looked at you and then looked away, why a person who seemed interested became quiet, and why certain connections felt so powerful before suddenly becoming confusing. But what if the deepest feeling was never loud? What if the person who truly noticed you was not the person trying hardest to impress you? What if the person who mattered most was quietly studying the parts of you that you thought nobody would ever notice, because there is something about you that has been seen? Not your clothes, not your appearance, not your achievements, not your possessions, you. And once you understand what they saw, you may finally understand why everything had to happen the way it did. You have had moments when you looked into a mirror and saw every flaw before you saw anything beautiful. You have compared yourself with people who seem to have more than you. You have wondered whether someone could truly choose you when there were so many people who appeared more attractive, more successful, more confident, or more financially secure. But you never saw yourself through their eyes. You never saw the person who stays awake thinking about things other people would dismiss. You never saw the way your kindness becomes almost invisible because you give it so naturally. You never noticed how many times you swallowed your own pain so you could comfort someone else. You never realized that your softness survived things that should have made you cold. And perhaps that is why someone became interested in you without fully understanding why. They saw something you had stopped seeing. They saw a heart that had been wounded but had not become cruel. They saw someone who had reasons to give up but still hoped. They saw someone who had been disappointed but still believed that love could be real. They saw someone who could have become bitter but chose to remain gentle. And that kind of beauty cannot be purchased, manufactured, or copied, which is why the next part of this story is going to surprise you, because there was another conversation. This time, your name came up unexpectedly. Someone mentioned you, and the room became strangely quiet. A person who had previously spoken about you with confidence suddenly changed their tone. "Don't misunderstand them," they said. "There's more to them than you think." And then came the sentence that nobody expected: "They're not looking for someone to save them. They're looking for someone who won't make them regret trusting again." That sentence stayed with someone. Maybe it stayed with you too. Even though you never heard it, because somewhere deep inside, that is what you have been trying to say all along. You don't need someone who simply admires you. You need someone who understands you. You don't need someone who loves the version of you that never struggles. You need someone who can remain when the mask comes off. You don't need someone who chooses you because of what you can provide. You need someone who chooses you because of who you are when there is nothing left to prove. And there is a reason this matters now, because someone has begun to understand the difference. They once thought attraction was enough. They once believed chemistry could solve everything. They once believed beautiful moments meant a beautiful future. But something happened. Something changed the way they see you. And it may have happened on a day when you thought nothing important was happening at all. Maybe it was the way you treated someone who could do nothing for you. Maybe it was something you said without thinking. Maybe it was the way you reacted when you were hurt. Maybe it was the way you protected someone's dignity when you could have exposed them. Maybe it was the way you walked away from an argument instead of trying to win. Maybe it was simply the fact that, despite everything you had been through, you still had compassion. They noticed, and they began asking themselves a question they were afraid to answer. What would it feel like to build a life with someone like this? That question was dangerous because it transformed a simple attraction into something much deeper. You may have thought they were losing interest. You may have thought their silence meant rejection. You may have assumed they had found someone else. You may even have told yourself that the connection was nothing more than something you imagined. But while you were trying to let go, they were trying to understand what they felt. And sometimes people become quiet not because they feel nothing, but because they feel something they don't know how to carry. There was fear in them, fear that they would disappoint you. Fear that they were not ready, fear that you would discover their insecurities, fear that they would lose control of their emotions, fear that you might see through them just as easily as they had begun seeing through you. And the most frightening realization of all was that you were becoming important, not convenient, not impressive, important. There is a difference. Someone can admire your appearance and forget you tomorrow. Someone can admire your money and disappear when Circumstances change. Someone can admire your achievements until someone more successful walks into the room. But when someone becomes attached to your character, something different happens. They begin missing your voice. They remember your smallest expressions. They notice when your energy changes. They remember things you said months ago. They wonder whether you ate. They wonder whether you are sleeping. They wonder what you are thinking when you become quiet. They begin noticing your absence in places where you used to be, and suddenly, they realize something they were never planning to admit. You have become part of their emotional world. That realization can frighten even the strongest person, especially someone who once promised themselves they would never become vulnerable again. And this is where an unexpected twist begins, because you were not the only one afraid. You thought you were the one waiting. You thought you were the one wondering. You thought you were the one hoping. But someone else was waiting too. Someone else was wondering too. Someone else was hoping too. And while you were asking, will they ever choose me? They were secretly asking, will I ever be brave enough to choose them? Those are two completely different questions, and the answer to the second one may already be moving toward you. There was a night when they almost reached out. They opened the conversation. They looked at your name. They typed something. Then they stopped. They deleted it. They typed again. Deleted it again. For a moment, they almost said everything. But fear won, not because they didn't care, because they cared too much. They knew that once certain words were spoken, there would be no way to return to pretending, and perhaps you have experienced that same hesitation. You have held your phone and wondered why someone was online but not speaking. You have wondered whether their silence was intentional. You have wondered whether they were thinking about you.